Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Sunday Politics live on Channels Television. I am Kayode Okikelu, right here at Channels Television's global headquarters in Lagos, Nigeria. Tonight on the program, we continue to anticipate the formation of a cabinet that will work in President Muhammadu Buhari's second term. It is now 39 days since President Buhari and his vice, Professor Shimbajo, were sworn in for a second term in office. We at Channels Television are counting the days till the president forms his cabinet. Now, some predicted that the ministerial list will be released this past week, but we didn't get it. We got a list of appointments, or should I say reappointments, to be fair, but it wasn't what Nigerians were expecting. On Friday, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Mr. Garba Shehu, put out two statements indicating that the President had reappointed Mr. Boss Mustafa as Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Abba Kyari as Chief of Staff, and 11 other personal staff. But that was not nearly enough to satisfy the yearning of many Nigerians. And while some were of the opinion that this is better than nothing at least, some others were not impressed. Whichever side of the divide you belong, the big picture is Nigeria. And the job at hand is to move the country forward. So while we wait, let's get into tonight's big conversation. You will agree with me that elections and democracy are practically inseparable, and the quality of a country's democracy is largely dependent on the quality of its electoral process. Now, elections are not entirely new in Nigeria. In fact, it is said that Nigeria's first election was held on September the 20th, 1923. Now, while that might be debatable, 1923 till date is 95 years. And with age, they say, comes wisdom. So what's the big issue? One of the most prominent stories that came out during this week involved the outcome of an election, which is the Osun governorship election, which held in September 2018. The Supreme Court gave a final verdict on the outcome of the election, which was contested at the tribunal. So let's show you a timeline of what exactly played out in Osun State. On September the 22nd, 2018, the main election was held. Now, Senator Ademola Adeleke led after the first round of polling with 353 votes after polling about 254,698 against Governor Oyetola's 254,345. Move on to September 27. Supplementary election was held in 7 polling units. INEC declared Mr. Oyetola as a winner of the election after supplementary poll with 255,023. While Senator, or rather 255,505, while Senator Adeleke polled 255,023. So let's move on to March the 22nd, 2019. This is concerning tribunal outcome, which declared Senator Ademola Adeleke the winner and then nullified the rerun. Now, according to the tribunal, the PDP won the election with 254,698 votes, while the APC came second with 253,452 votes. Now, the APC appealed the judgment. You have that right there on your screen. So fast forward to May the 9th, 2019. The Court of Appeal ruled that the tribunal was in patent error when it set aside the rerun. Now, the court, which had also delivered its verdict in a split decision of 4-1, ruled that the judge who issued the majority decision at the tribunal, that's Peter Obiora, was absent on February the 6th, 2019, when a major decision or discussion on the issue of non-compliance was tabled before the tribunal and could therefore not have viewed the issue squarely. Let's move on. Now, Senator Adeleke challenged this decision at the Supreme Court, and this brings us to July the 5th, 2019, when the Supreme Court affirmed Governor Oyetola as a winner of Osun governorship election. So there you have the main issue. Now, Governor Oyetola has the backing of the Constitution of the land to finish his 4-year tenure as the governor of Osun State. So let's meet our guest tonight. He is a senior advocate of Nigeria. He has been in practice for 50 years. Chief Robert Clarke joins us tonight on the program. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on the program.
Always my pleasure.
So now, Nigerians have heard you speak on different issues of national importance, perhaps very fearless in recent times. Now, another issue which Nigerians will definitely love to hear what you have to say is the outcome of the Osun election. So what were your immediate reactions to the judgment of the Supreme Court?
Well, the judgment of the Supreme Court came as a surprise to some elements of the society in Osun State, and also did not come as a surprise to many people who are learned in the law. The judgment was by a majority of 5-2. The 5 judges giving judgment to the APC man decided that due to the fact that the lead a man who wrote the judgment in the tribunal never participated on the very vital day that certain decisions were taken and which he now read as the judgment. The other 2 claimed that the malpractices surrounding the rerun and the rerun itself was not necessary, and that INEC was really, really wrong to have sought for that rerun. That is the divide. Look, you have to look straight. The Supreme Court judges are very, very hardworking men. Hardworking in the sense that, do you know how many judgments they write all within this period of the harvest period for election petitions? Now, the 5 judges have claimed that if you are a judge, you see, in law, cross-examination of a witness are so vital. At times you win or lose your case merely on cross-examinations, because under cross-examination, you are in a position to look at the demeanor of the witness, whether he's telling the truth or not. You can destroy a witness through cross-examination. You can build your case through. So it's so important. Now, this judge who wrote the judgment, according to the lawyer to the APC, said was not available that day. Well, is that sufficient enough for the Supreme Court to set aside that judgment? I would say from my experience that if I'm not allowed to cross-examine a witness, it's a fundamental breach of my right to fair hearing for my client. So if a judge did not sit, he did not witness, see the face of a witness, look at his demeanor, comes right to write a judgment. A judgment in which, even though there are 5 members, but he has contributed to that judgment and is now writing that judgment. I thought, in the interest of justice, in the interest of fair hearing, the Supreme Court was deadly correct to have said, look, you cannot do this.
Okay. Now, Chief Clarke, we're looking at the implication of this on the nation's judiciary and then the electoral process in the country, which is very vital to democracy. Now, I'd like to take you back to a few months ago. You were on this program, you were seated right where you're sitting right now, and you made a statement. You were asked a question. You were asked, is there a rot? Do you think there's a rot in the nation's judicial system? In fact, the Supreme Court, that was a precise question. And your response was, you said definitely. Now, fast forward to 5 months after, do you think that statement is still correct from your perspective?
Well, I am a man, I stand by my words. And I have no regret for having said there is a rot in the Supreme Court. But I did not say that the Supreme Court judges were rotting. I said politicians have brought the rot into the Supreme Court.
In fact, let me just quote you. You said, since the operation of the Constitution in 1999, you said the politicians have been corrupting judges. So do you still think that is the case now?
It is still the case. But however, we have started learning from our experience. Maybe politicians are now being clever. They hide themselves in what they do. But I am still not too sure in my mind that that situation we found ourselves is not going to rear its head again. I am happy that the present members of the Supreme Court are up to there. But believe me, they are being overworked.
Why do you say that?
Look, I also said it on this program before. When this Constitution was written, cases from the tribunal in respect of gubernatorial matters, senatorial, House of Reps, House of Assembly, they all end at the Court of Appeal, thereby reducing the load of work that will have gone to the Supreme Court. During my good friend's tenure, Katsina Alulate, may his good soul rest in peace, there was a bloody, drama that resulted in him giving a dictation to the Court of Appeal president to stop adjudication, and the man refused, and he was correct, because the CJ of the Federation has no power to delegate to the president of the Court of Appeal what to do. Now, since then, the law was amended, allowing now all the 36 gubernatorial cases to go to one Supreme Court, which was going to how many Court of Appeals all over Nigeria. They now find themselves, they are being overworked. I use that word that it was a self-inflicted injury. Yes, I still stand by it. My good friend, late Katsina Alulate, his good soul rest in peace, was the architect of this transfer. It was not the fault of the judges of the Supreme Court.
So we're getting to the point where, I mean, you're probably pushing for a reform of judiciary, but we'll get there. I'd also like to take you up on another issue. Now, there are allegations, widespread, allegations that the executive is perhaps intimidating the judiciary. Do you share those sentiments?
Well, I will not rule it out. I'm not a politician, but I know what politicians can do. Forget the present government. It has been, no government in the world will not influence a decision of the Supreme Court. Let me be honest about that. In America today, judges of the Supreme Court are being appointed by Mr. President, and he's no fool. He wouldn't put a Democrat, ideological, orientated judge to the Supreme Court. He will put a man who thinks like him, who has the same idea as a right-wing politician. And when they have cases, don't believe that there are no influences. There are influences. So Nigeria is not different. But I would not agree that when it comes to political cases, any government should, go into it. If it has to do with the security, if it has to do with the welfare of the people, then the government can put. But when it comes to politics, please, no government should interfere.
Now you said should, but earlier you alluded to the fact that it is a possibility. So where do you begin to draw the line, especially because there's meant to be proper separation of power?
Look, we are all Nigerians. We have seen how this country has been managed for the past 30, 40, 50 years. It gives no hope to you and I. I have told you that since politics came in 20 years ago, the judiciary has not been the same. Politics has not been the same. The politics of the First Republic, the politics of the Second are quite different from this politics of 20 years. This is a rotten constitution that allows so much money to filter into the system of politics.
In fact, now that you mentioned that, I remember something you also said in 2017, and I'll just take this quote. You made this statement, like I said, in 2017, and I quote, you said, our system of choosing candidates. Now, I'm just trying to link this to the electoral process. We've talked about the judiciary. Yeah. Now let's talk about elections, party elections. And this is what you said. You said, our system of choosing candidates within the political party is the most corrupt system in the whole world. You went on to say, where a candidate that tries to vie for the position of a governor has to spend well over 5 billion naira just to get the nomination of his party. You went on to say, we shouldn't allow such, so we have to restructure. And restructuring is to jettison the 1999 Constitution. So this is a reform we're talking about. What is the way forward?
The way forward is this. Let us take a clear example from South Africa. South Africa is running a presidential system of governance, but its electoral processes are all on parliamentary basis. The constituencies are delimited in the form of electoral seats. If you want to be president in South Africa today, you don't carry ballot boxes all over the different regions in South Africa. You concentrate on your local government. Your expenses are so reduced. You don't need to go and look for a godfather to loan you millions and billions of money to be able to traverse the whole of the country. So a system that will reduce the number of, constituencies you have to traverse before you seek for election will also reduce the cost of such elections. So, if Nigeria has a parliamentary system of government and they want to put on top of it the president of the, okay. But allow all elections, there are 700 and something local governments in Nigeria. If you have one candidate coming in from them into the National Assembly, we don't need an upper house. We don't need a Senate. We are wasting money all there. From this 700 and something, vote for your president. Within that, the party that emerges will have known, I am to pick Mr. President. The caucus of the party already knows who is the leader. Unlike what Shinagin was seeing in Senate here, where people who have won an election, the APC, are going around to PDP to lobby them, to vote for them on the floor of the House. That is corruption per se. That is money politics. We don't need all this.
Now, some are saying that at this age and stage of Nigeria, I mean, we're talking about a 60-year-old country, for example, can we afford to go through that reform? I mean, what happens to the already laid down procedures? Can we afford to really go through that procedure?
Look, Jonathan started it. When Jonathan set up that Constituent Assembly or whatever he set up, it was the best chance for Nigeria. But unfortunately, and I said it on television, he never laid a legal basis whereby the decision of that assembly will become law tomorrow. It was never the intention of the PDP then to do so. It was a ruse. But that is the opportunity. One, if you want to change the system, the president now, as it is, if he wants to leave a legacy for Nigeria, should set up a constituent assembly like Jonathan did. Pass a bill to the National Assembly. I am setting up a constituent assembly. Whatever decision they have, I am taking it to referendum. Whatever the decision the referendum comes back with, I will send it back to you for you to become law. I can assure you, if they sit one man from every local government in Abuja, draw up a constitution, send it to referendum, the National Assembly will not change it.
Do you see that happening in the next?
It will. And I'm praying hard. I'm not very religious, but I believe in the efficacy of prayers. I believe God will touch Buhari's mind to do this referendum for us, so that you and I can be proud when we are singing our national anthem that this is our constitution. We wrote it. It's possible.
Okay, now we've talked about the broad reform. Now let's take a look at the judiciary once again. Now you perhaps know firsthand what it feels like to be sort of cheated by the system. I mean, you said several times that you did not become a senior advocate of Nigeria until after 10 years that you deserved it, or more thereabouts. Now, how much reform are we also looking at in the judiciary of the country?
Look, if we are not able to jettison this constitution, election petitions will always continue to dominate the whole aspect of the judiciary's life. Today, 80% of the decisions Supreme Court give out a year are all political cases. The other 20, but they have no time. I know they are working hard. I give it to them. They are really working hard. They are not the creator of their problems now. It was created by their predecessors. But what I'm saying is this: let us have a constitutional court. Let us have a constitutional court that is an intermediary court between the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal. So that when election tribunals finish their cases, one, it goes straight to the Constitutional Court, and that judgment will be final. So that our Supreme Court can now sit down properly and give judgments that will not reflect any bias, any prejudice, and we will all take it.